Life in my firm before Chronicle, it was much more complicated. I I initially started using Atlasware that became Assure. So I was one of the early people using Atlasware, and it was a good product for what it did. But we still had to get onto ERE and basically let our software that we were using to run the firm tell us when we had to look for things. And then we would look for things in ERE. It was basically driven by my Prevail, and it was only as good as the last person who'd put in the next step to check for. I was constantly keeping reports on where things were and where I should expect to see things and when to check for the next thing. It was much more difficult, much more time intensive for me, because it was my responsibility. So I couldn't just ultimately leave it to an assistant. I had to know that if the average time frame was 180 days at initial, I had to start looking and I'd have to start making calls. And then, it was just a lot more um, of my time in just the management of the movement of the file as opposed to the development of the case. And it was a lot more difficult. Biggest problem was keeping track on where things were, because we had to rely that we would be getting a notice from Social Security in writing, in the mail, on time, that my client would get it and that we'd be dealing with it appropriately. If everything was happening right with Social Security 80% of the time, that still meant 20% of the time was open to be a complete unmitigated disaster. Deadlines could get missed and problems could occur. We spent a lot of time just double checking where should something be and making the call to DDS and sitting on hold for 45 minutes to do that. Between me and staff, we were spending 25% of our time doing that kind of checking just to figure out where things were and what was happening and trying to find out what was up or calling the local office. It was just a mess.